Hi, I'm Dr. Digital, also known on the street as Polly McGee. Welcome to Everything E-commerce, the Digital Ready program's video series to help you get better acquainted with some of the basics and some of the more complicated parts of your digital strategy. Today we're going to be looking at mainly the strategic part of e-commerce. Let me break that down for you a bit. Before you even get into what type of a website do you need, we have to think about where it fits in your strategy. So today we're going to be going through these things. Where's your business at right now? What do you need to think about before you embark on e-commerce? We're going to look at what can you sell online, what part of your mix of products or services really lends itself to a digital transaction, and what might stay on the shelf. What do you need to make it happen? I'm guessing you probably already have some of your digital jigsaw pieces in place, and we want to make sure that your puzzle is fully filled out. So I'm going to talk about some of the things that you'll definitely need, and we're going to have a look at some of the online options that are available to you to make your digital experience for you and especially for your customer even better. And we're also going to think about where you can be agile. Has there ever been a more important time to be agile than right now? Probably not. We're recording this in a post-COVID environment, and for many of you, you'll have had to rapidly have moved from potentially being in a retail space or in a market to being in an online environment. What this has done is a really good thing because it's actually made people get more agile in their thinking about what they sell, who they sell it to, and how they sell it. So we're going to be making sure that you're fully prepared to be as agile as possible when you're in your digital realm. So question number one, where is your business at right now? Many of us have gone through the COVID period and had to take a long, hard look at our business. That's not a bad thing. It's really great to have a deep understanding, particularly of your finances and where you are with your stock on hand, what you can afford, what you can't afford. This means that you're really across your business and you know where you can pivot and you know what you can afford to do and what you can't afford to do. When you're moving to a more digital environment, it's not an impactless move. So with everything e-commerce, you have to think about what are some of the impacts going to be in your business. Do you have the staff who are going to be able to do the fulfillment? Do you have the right kind of technology that's going to allow you to have, say, a seamless inventory in real life to help your customers out? Do you have products which lend themselves to being an online product? Are they going to be easy to ship? Are you going to be able to post them? Are you going to be able to only work in Australia, or can you post globally? These are the kind of things that you really need to think about. And in many cases, there won't be a single one-size-fits-all answer. You might be able to work with some of your inventory and not all of it, and you may be able to find some innovative solutions on how to make that happen. In our post-COVID environment, the need for a contactless transaction is still pretty paramount. I don't think that's going to change when we go back to whatever business as usual looks like. So this is one of the reasons that having a good e-commerce platform to work with and being really clear on what you're doing in your business is going to really help you to make your customers feel safe about having transactions with you. So let's start with your inventory. What have you got to sell? Now, if you're a service-based business, you might be in a service where, like me, say you're a consultant and you would have formally gone into people's businesses, sat with them, had a conversation. What are the kinds of things that you can translate to an online environment? Well, we've all been stuck in front of a Zoom camera or a Skype camera or a Teams camera for the last few months. And many of you, like me, will have realised that it's really easy to package up some of your knowledge into, say, a course or a webinar that you can sell online. That's a really easy translation from something you might have done in real life to something that works really well as a digital transaction. And the other benefit of that, of course, is you can record it once and you can sell it over and over and over again, which potentially widens your reach and allows you to sell it into different time jurisdictions where you may not be working in a live capacity. Many people, surprisingly, haven't actually thought of that before, that their knowledge is a commodity that can be packaged and sold. So that's the kind of place that you can think, what in my business can I package, can I make into a course, can I make into a transaction? If you sell products, you can think about what are the products that best lend themselves to being online. Anything that can be packaged and posted potentially can be sold as an online product. If you deal in live products like flowers or plants or food that has a use by date, say you're a restaurant, you might think about how do you make that able to be transacted with online. Now, those kind of products wouldn't necessarily be posted. They might be delivered or they might have a contactless pickup that you can use. There will be certain things potentially in your business that don't lend themselves to the transaction online. But the great thing about e-commerce is you get to choose. And certainly what we've been seeing in this time of rapid change for business is business often choosing the products or services which are highest value to them and have the highest margin, and they're the ones they choose to have as their online product. Don't feel the need to have your complete inventory online. People are looking for the things that they want, and they'll want what you have to give them. Customers are a really super important part of this transaction. It's really less about what you think and far more about what your customers need. You need to be really clear on the people that you sell to and the value proposition that you're giving them. If you give them what they need in a way that's incredibly easy to transact, so it's frictionless and seamless, you'll find that people will want to transact with you, and it will make it nice and smooth, and those cash registers, real and virtual, will be ringing. The first place to start in all of this is with your existing set of products. If you have a website already, if you haven't had it built for you or built it in the last couple of years, I really recommend that you do a digital ready checkup with our auditing tool. You can go to our website, digitalready.tas.gov.au, and you can check out our digital checkup tool. It'll give you, in just a few minutes, a download of everything that's happening on your website and tell you how user-friendly it is, which is the first point that you need to understand. If your website's a little bit older, you tend to find that it's slower. It may not load up pictures as quickly, your SEO might not be as strong as it should be, and you may be missing out on some really valuable accessibility, which is super important in terms of Google ranking your website. So the first thing to do is do an audit of what you've already got. Have a look at your suite of tools and how they work together. Let's say you've already got a website. You might then have social media sitting around that drives customers into your website. Where are they making the transaction points? Where are they being introduced to your product or service or brand to start with? Really look at what the whole picture of your website and your transactions look like. And that's the first port of call when you're thinking about e-commerce. It all comes down to strategy. And of course, that strategy involves your customers. A lot of people just want to get to the cut of like, well, what about the website? I just need to make a website. Hold your horses. Websites are really important, and I certainly don't think that we've got to a place where websites are redundant. But again, what I want you to really think about is, who are your customers? Where are they finding you, and where do they want to transact? Now, as I said, in most cases for me, a website is the clean, clear space for your brand to play. But if, say, the majority of your customers interact with you on a Facebook group or in your Facebook for Business page, or even in Instagram, you might find that that's the place you want to start setting up transactions. Again, when you're getting into social media sites and transacting on them, things are getting a bit messy in terms of other brands and also where the information sits. That's up to you to make that decision in your business. But certainly think about what is the easiest place for people to find you. We're going to be going through this in more detail in terms of where your customers want to do their transactions. But just to think about at the beginning, is the website the place they're going to transact? And are you and your business ready to have your own site if you don't have one? But let's say that you do, and it's time to think about what type of a site you need. Of course, there's also the third-party sites that you could use. Say you're a craftsperson, you might want to use something like Etsy. If you have an inventory that you just don't really need a particular brand presence or more information, you could also use something like eBay. They will take a cut of your transactions, but they do take some of the friction away of having to manage all of that stuff yourself. So if you don't feel that you particularly want to get into the website transaction just now, have a look at third-party providers and what they can do for you. Again, you still need to understand what your inventory is and how to manage the inventory and logistics and how you get that to your people. Otherwise, you'll be looking at having really 2 or 3 different types of websites. You can have a website that's predominantly for information. These sometimes are also known as vanity websites, and really what they do is they help your customers understand who you are and give them basic tools to get in contact with you. If you're a consultant, say, and you're selling a package of services, it may not be the kind of thing where you can just have someone buy it online. You might need to have an onboarding call with them. You might need to have a discussion first. So the primary value of your website is for them to go and get a sense of who you are, what it is you sell, so they can make the next step, which would be to possibly send you an email, a text, or ring you. If you have a quite basic inventory, you might have a website which links people through to one of those third-party sites. So if you're an amazing craftsperson, rather than having a website that has its own e-commerce engine in it, you might have some of your goods on display and people can click through and they can go to Etsy, or they can go to eBay, or they can go to another aggregated site where the transaction takes place and you don't have to manage that. In that sort of a situation, you're normally paying a fee for that third party to do that for you, but it makes things quite simple. When you get into really having a more complex inventory and you feel that you're ready to take control of the transactions yourself, you can have a website that has a shopping cart built into it and has a capacity for you to have transactions done there, fulfillment done there, a whole lot of other things built in like emails and communication, tracking numbers, that kind of stuff. That's getting you to a more complex world. And if you're at that point, you might also be thinking about whether that's something you want to manage yourself or whether that's something that you will work with a web designer or someone to support you in that web service. We're going to go into some websites in a bit more detail later, so just don't panic if you want to get more information right now. What we're doing here is taking you through the thinking process before you get to talking to a web designer. Because of course you really need to be clear on what you are going to be asking for, what your brief is, for yourself or for a third party who's going to help you. One of the things people don't often think about when they are setting their websites up is fulfillment. And I think this has been sharper in focus than ever during and post-COVID, because what we understood is that sometimes the services that we relied on can really slow down, and that's really changed the nature of not only how we transact, but how we communicate with our customers. So you need to think about who is going to be the most appropriate service. It could be something like Australia Post. It might be that you're dealing with a courier, or it might be that you're dealing with a fulfillment centre that does that for you. But think about every element in that transaction chain, from really the moment that the customer has an interaction with your brand, all the way through to the point at which they transact, when you get that order in that you have to fulfill and how you get it there. When I mentioned at the outset around making sure you had the right capacity within your business for your staff and their skills, someone has to get those orders together. Someone has to label them and package them up. You have to get the packaging from somewhere. There's lots of little bits and pieces that when you're thinking about the beautiful product or service you have that's suddenly arriving in someone's lounge room or office, you may not have really thought about all the different bits and pieces, and they can add up to time and money. And we live in an instant gratification world, so when people order their products, they're expecting them to arrive really quickly so they can have that moment of fulfillment. What we've really seen with the slowdown in post and all of the different issues that we've had with airlines, etc., is that we've probably all learned to be a bit more patient. The onus then goes on to the business owner to make sure that the communication with the customer is really spot on in terms of letting them know when their goods are going to be arriving. So you might also want to therefore think about where are the emails sitting in your website or in the third party you're using to do fulfillment with, to make sure that every step of the way your customers are appraised of what's happening with the product that they've bought. They've entrusted money to you and they're entrusting trust in your brand. It's really easily broken if there's just nothing but crickets for weeks waiting for products. And you don't want them to be having a sour taste in their mouth when they get that fantastic thing of yours. So I'm hammering on about it, but I think it's really important to understand the role of fulfillment and logistics and make sure that you've got all of that nailed. And of course, it's not just what's going through the mail or through a courier. People are really loving the contactless transactions now, like click and collect and curbside and even drive-through. So if you potentially have a retail business that has been bricks and mortar in real life, you might think about how you can seamlessly integrate your digital and your pickup so people can come through and not have to have contact. And that, of course, is also all about convenience. Click and collect really works because not all of us have got the time to be able to go in and browse. We can have a quick browse, a purchase in our lunchtime at work, drive through, grab a curbside and go at the end of the day on the way home. Consumers are now really driven by confidence and convenience. It's the 2 C's. So we want to make sure that you're able to do that through your e-commerce package. And again, all of this comes back to knowing your customer, what their likes and dislikes are, and really being able to nail that in the way that you give your services. You might be asking, well, how do I find out that? It's all well and good to say, I've just got to know what the customer wants. You know, the absolute easiest way of all is to ask them. If you're an established business, I'm imagining you might have an email list or you might have contact with your regular customers. I'm hoping you've got an email list, because email is still one of the most powerful conversion tools we've got, far more powerful than social media. So if you do have a great email list, one of the things you can do is email your customers, send them a killer newsletter and ask them what are some of the things that they would like from you. How can it be easier for them to transact with you? If you're nervous about doing that and thinking, oh, my customers are busy, they don't need to be bothered by me, think again, because customers really like to have a say. They really like to give you their opinion, and they feel like they're part of your brand. So go out on your social media channels, go out on your email lists and ask people what you can do differently, how you can do things better. It's a really nice way to just have an engagement with your customers. And certainly if your business had been in a bit of a slowdown over the period where we've been shut down, this is a really nice time to invigorate it by some personal conversations and really finding out what's going on. There is no better way to get the right answer about what your customers need than to ask them yourself. Now is probably also the time to be thinking about, where can you be agile in your business? Why can you do something you haven't done before? Being agile is about being able to step into the unknown and experiment. You're not always going to get it right. So when you're doing that, you need to make sure that you aren't hemorrhaging stacks of money at the same time. But it's also an interesting thing to think about what parts of your business might be able to be made more digital, be able to be a product or service you haven't offered before. As I said at the outset, where can you change to being a more digitally focused business? It's a big ask for a lot of businesses that are very product driven and people and front of house driven, but it is possible. And we've seen lots of things like fantastic cocktail bars doing home delivery or curbside cocktails. We've seen fine dining restaurants move into doing takeaway and drop off and curbside. So there's lots of ways you can think about doing something different. And thinking about being agile in the digital sense is, if the world's open up to you and your business, how can you think bigger? If you're a Tasmanian business, how can you reach the mainland? How can you reach beyond? Where are some of the areas in your business that you can get digitally busy, that you might find a whole revenue stream that you've never thought of before? We've covered off a few strategy points now, and all of that is also on the PowerPoint, which you can see in the background. So hopefully you've been following along, and you can rewind, fast forward. What I'm going to do now is take you through a user experience in a transactional sense for e-commerce before we get to the nitty-gritty of some of the different services that you can use to do these things. So again, we're still in our strategy discussion. So I want you to think about the customer and how they engage with you. The customer journey is really important for e-commerce because it really gives us all of the clues that we need as to how we're going to manage that transaction. So let's say I'm your customer. Where am I most likely to find you? I'm probably most likely to start by finding you on social media. Now, I might be actively looking or I might be passively looking and have just done a stumble across. But that's going to be my first point of transaction. So I'm going to take us through the whole journey from the minute that I come across you on Facebook, on Instagram, maybe even on TikTok, who knows. What happens for me next? I get curious. And when I get curious, I want to find out a bit more about this brand. You've got to really understand with social that social for business is about telling a brand's story, and it's also about connecting you with the experience of the brand and the other people. In a social world, we're really having conversations with each other about the brand over here, and we're seeing the brand as part of our lifestyle and wanting to associate with that. That expression brand halo is all about that. We want to be able to be engaging with in a playful and fun way until we really feel we have some ownership with the brand. This is where social works really well. And if you see social as part of your funnel to bring people to a place of transaction and then take them back into a virtuous loop where they get back and they're celebrating you on social, this is the user journey that we're about to go through now. So I've had my experience on social. My interest has been piqued and I've started to really look more into your brand. If I'm on Instagram, I might have gone to your page and I'm looking through all your tiles. If I'm on Facebook, I might be scrolling through and starting to see, what does your brand look like? What are some of the other things you've got? How is it aligning with my values and with who I am? This is where it's important to, and there's plenty of stuff around on social strategy for this, but I'll cover it very briefly. It's important for you to make your brands a storytelling brand about who you are. It's not all about transactions. You might be talking about products in an oblique way, but it's not a hard sales channel. I mean, you know this. We've had social for long enough now that we kind of know how it works. So as a consumer, I might just be stealthily looking at your brand for a while. I might have to buy something to start to have that connection with it, to make it feel like it's a brand that I want to have the same lifestyle as. And this is the point at which I might get closer to a place of transaction. So once I've got closer, I might start engaging a little more. Maybe I'll make a comment, maybe I'll like a post, maybe I will start to see who else I know that likes your product and is using it. Maybe I'll look sort of round the sides and start getting ready to make a purchase. So much of the purchasing journey happens in this lead up part. It's relatively rare that we just see something and we purchase it straight away, unless, you know, maybe it's late at night and we've had a gin and tonic. But generally, we take a little bit of time and we get to sort of know the brand before we make that transaction. This is one of the great things. Once people are committed to your brand, you're really likely to have followers who will then purchase other things. So this is the dating period, it's the wooing period. And by now we're really interested. And what happens next? We probably want to make a move from the social media site to the website where we can get to a place that takes us closer to transactions. Once I'm on your website, you have a very limited time to really truly capture me. Now, I might be there because I've already made a decision to purchase, but there's quite a lot that can happen by the time I arrive to the time I actually get to getting that credit card out of my pocket and sealing the deal. When I get to your website, it needs to be the most frictionless environment possible. And what I mean by that is what I was alluding to before when I was talking about getting that Dr. Digital Ready checkup. Because what you need is to know that when I land on your website, it's easy to read. It's easy to navigate around. I can find the products that I want to find and I can find the way to get to that transaction. When I get there and I want to transact, I want to do it as simply as possible. The number of abandoned carts that happen because the transaction point is actually really complex, you make it as simple as possible. So as much as you can capture details, be able to use PayPal or Shopify or any of those online transactions which mean I don't have to be fumbling around in my handbag at night to try and find my credit card. Anything that makes it easy is going to get you one step closer to having a transaction. I want to be able to see what the shipping is. I want to be able to understand the logistics. And I need you to work all that through in your design strategy before I even get there. So this is where when you get to that part, it's really super important that you're ready for me to arrive. So I've arrived, I've seen that product that I saw on Facebook or Instagram, and I've followed the trail and I'm there and I'm ready to go. I'm going to transact. What happens next? What happens next isn't the end of the story when I do that transaction. Then there's a whole lot of anticipation, but it gets a little more weighted. Because not only have I had the thought, I've actually done the deed, and now I've made a commitment with you. I've had an investment in you, and I need for you to now deliver on the brand promise that you made me way back when I first came across you on social media. Now that's going to be things like, as I said just before, letting me know when my products are going to arrive, understanding how I experienced that transaction. Was there anything that could have happened that's better? Keeping me excited and keeping me thrilled in anticipation, waiting for that parcel or that download, whatever it is, to appear for me. This is the in real life part of the convergence where I go from having what is largely an intellectual experience, because I'm anticipating, I'm thinking, I'm feeling, but I haven't actually done anything yet. The moment after I've transacted is the key part where I need to be fulfilled. And then when I get that product or service in my hands, it has to meet the brand promise you've made me earlier. It has to be all the things that you've said it is. And in theory, it actually should be even better. And there's plenty of really great examples of this, where people have done little extra things in their brand that really go the distance. One example I can think of is when Canva, the printing and online design organisation, went into doing that from digital into printing. And I ordered some business cards from them. And I can't say it was a transaction I was massively thrilled about. They were just business cards. But I'd really enjoyed the process of being able to go from just designing in Canva to then seamlessly being able to print and receive the product. When I did receive the product, it was so beautifully packaged. And it had such a lovely handwritten welcome note from their founder saying, "Thank you for supporting us," that I really felt like I was part of their brand story. It made me really brand loyal to them. And Just that packaging alone, it was just a simple set of business cards. It really stuck in my mind. It really made me feel that that was a brand that supported my values and supported me. So of course, when that happens, and I've just received that fantastic package, what happens next? We complete the virtuous cycle. And the completion of the virtuous cycle is the perfection. It's the moment where, as I did with my Canva purchase, I go back to social media, and this time I'm in the story with the brand, and I'm able to say, look what I've got, it's fantastic, I love this brand, they're so great, they're so Tasmanian, this is so fresh, whatever it is, you're there and you're able to start retelling the brand story. So if we map all the way through that, every single part of that you have to have lined up as part of your e-commerce suite. E-commerce is far bigger than simply just the website where you're transacting. It's all of the different stages, it's all of the actors that are involved to get me from idly looking on my phone, scrolling away and suddenly seeing something that I have a connection with, to the place where I've transacted, to the place where then I've talked about it and have started on your behalf to recruit some more people to come into your brand. In some ways, all of this is just some kind of twisted multi-level marketing, but it works, and this is the way we transact now. So when you think about your e-commerce, think about every step of the user journey. If you think about the strategy from the perspective of your user, you're going to be 100% ahead of the game. All right, so we've had the lofty grand vision, we've tasted that pie in the sky, and it's now time to come and look at what are some of the digital tools that you can use. Strategy comes first. The heavy lifting comes with the thinking. And I know everyone loves to rush to what website we're going to use and what colours our brand's going to be, but really the customer drives all of this. Customers, they don't care about what's going on in the background. They don't really care about any of this stuff we're doing now. What they want is to have a need fulfilled when they need it to be fulfilled. And they want it fulfilled as fully and instantly as possible. And it's our job to do that. All right, so let's start with a website. If you've already got a website, as I said before, have a look at it again. Look at it with these new eyes of strategy. When you're building a website, you've really got pretty much three options. You can use a template-driven website and do it yourself. You can use a freelancer, or you can go to an agency. All of them have pros and cons, and I'll unpack them briefly for you. So there's plenty of really fabulous template websites around now. You might have heard of names like Wix and Weebly and Squarespace. They're the three most common ones. And what they basically do is they give you a range of different templates you can build yourself. They're very simple tools. They're drag and drop, they're word-based. They're the kind of things that someone with no technical experience can put together a pretty decent website. You normally pay a subscription fee per month with a site like that, and often they'll be in a one-stop shop, so you'll be able to purchase photographs. They have carts in them, so you can put simple transactional shopping carts. You'll be able to often set up your email, do all that kind of stuff. That can all happen within the site. And for many businesses, that is all you're going to need to do. If you're still feeling like you'd like someone to come along and maybe have a little bit more experience, you can go to a freelancer. Now, you'll find them just by Googling freelancers in your area, or you could use one of the many freelance digital sites. Using an individual who's got a bit more know-how generally means that you don't have to do that stuff that makes you feel uncomfortable. And it might be more expedient and faster for your business to have someone do that. Personally, I think if you only need a fairly basic website with a basic transaction, it's really great to at least understand how it's done yourself, because you need to have control of that back end. The benefit of those template websites is also that they've got a lot of SEO built into them, but having someone who understands SEO, like a freelancer, to help you with it, make sure that you get that right. And that's really important in terms of your website ranking. If you have a much more complex need with your e-commerce, and quite often this is a progression, so you'll start with something you build yourself, you might get it tweaked up by a freelancer, and then you find as your business grows and scales, you might need to go to an agency to get some really serious power built into your back end, particularly into your e-commerce tools. Obviously, there are different price points along the way, and the agency is usually the more expensive option, but it's also an option that you're paying for what you're getting. So you're paying for people who really know what they're doing, who are going to give you fabulous design, and are also going to give you the benefit of their strategic experience in what the design and build should look like. They will know what transacts well, what gets people in, what helps people convert. So often you're also buying a whole heap of knowledge with them. No better or worse for any of them. It really just depends on where your business is at right now. And sometimes it's a false economy to go with a cheaper option when maybe in the early part of your business, what you really need is someone who can give you some really great advice. So shop around and also look to websites you really like. When you see a website that you love, reach out to the business and ask them who did it for them or how they did it. Most business owners are super generous with their time and they want you to succeed. And so they'll be able to help you. And of course, the Digital Ready coaches in the Digital Ready program, we're all here for you and you can book a free online session with us through the website, but that's an aside. Once you've made your decision about how you're going to create your website or how you're going to extend your website, if you're really thinking about some deep e-commerce, there are some fantastic options and all of them are cloud-based and all of them are really starting to work with SEO and building in inventory tools to help you. We've kind of summarised just the three main ones for this presentation, which are BigCommerce, Spotify and Magento. All of these are tried and true and proven, and they're proven in the Australian market and they work and they seamlessly integrate with a lot of the Australian tools and the conditions of doing business here. Shopify is a really common one. It's quite easy to use and it's quite entry level as well. So most people will go to Shopify as their first port of call. What you're looking for when you're getting to that level of e-commerce is you're probably managing quite a lot of inventory. So it's more than just 5 or 6 things that you can have on a simple inbuilt cart website. Shopify also has web options and a whole lot of other stuff built in. BigCommerce and Magento are the same. That just depends on what suits your website better. Magento tends to be used by WordPress websites more. I haven't really talked about WordPress, but it's another one of the websites that you can build yourself and often commonly used by web builders, freelancers and others. It's quite favoured because it's great for SEO and there's a lot of different plugins you can get to build your site as you go. So it sort of grows with your business as you do. But your freelance designer or your agency can help you with those decisions. Those 3 basic carts are going to give you everything you need unless you've really got a big inventory, and by that stage you'll be getting to a more specialist and niche opportunity or someone coding it for you. But for most transactional websites, those 3 guys are big enough heavy hitters to really help you out. When you're managing your inventory, there are some online tools you can get. You can do it manually, but if you move towards automation in the areas you can automate in, it's going to make things easier in your business. These are just 3 options that you can have a look at to give you an idea of what's out there. Vico, Inventory Source and Sourcify, they help you source items as well as help you manage the inventory that you've got. One of the key things in inventory management is that it's done in real time. So you can understand the complexity of, say you've got an online store at the same time as you've got in real life store. If I'm going online and I'm purchasing an item at the same time as someone is purchasing that from the store, is it updating in real time so I don't get to the cart to transact and to pay for it only to find out it's not there, or even worse, pay for it and then have to get an email saying, sorry, we'd sold out of that. Customers go crazy when that happens. So it's really important to make sure that whatever you've got, you're able to manage your inventory and the flows of your inventory. And those are products that can help you do that. We've talked a little bit about shipping domestically, and of course in Australia, Australia Post does a great job for many businesses. When you get to more complex and often multi-site shipping, here are some online options for you that will help you bring things together and integrate your logistics a little bit more. This can become a really big part of your business, and I have to say that a lot of businesses I know that were really worried about whether there'd be a success or not. The biggest challenges they've had haven't been selling their products. They've gone great guns. The biggest challenges they've had are getting their products to the people. So sometimes businesses like these can really help you. Shipping Easy, Shippo, Ordero, they've all been checked out and they're all great, and they will give you a whole lot of different options for that integration so you know where things are at different times, and you can certainly also build in things like costs of international shipping, which can be a really big one if you're shipping out of Tasmania. So just another few that you can have a look at to help you get into a better place to give your customers the service they want. Click and collect's becoming quite the thing. There's still not a lot of really great online services and tools to help you integrate that as yet. So you need to really think about how you do the click and collect part of your business. Again, if people are coming into your store, you need to know when their orders come through that they have to be ready by a certain time, whereabouts you're going to have them. There's things to think about that sort of add on to your e-commerce. With Click and Collect, it's not just the transaction, it's the way that you actually get them to that person in what is often a very timely way. So you quite often need someone in your business that is going to be able to have a dedicated look at that. And these two services here can help you, Hub'd and Zapier. Hopefully some more will be coming along, particularly in this post-COVID times where we're getting very used to clicking and collecting. What I see quite often in Tasmania is businesses who really have a dedicated part of their retail front for that, if they're a shop front, so people can just come in quickly, easily and contactless, get their stuff and go. So think about what the flow of that looks like for you. And clearly some of the biggest stores have been doing it quite successfully, and you can have a look and see how they do it and then translate that to your business. I mentioned the email list before, and as I said, I'm a great enthusiast for email still. I feel like it's a really personal way to get in touch with your customers. But again, it's something that you really want to automate. And there's lots of different people who are doing that now. MailChimp and Buffer are still two really big ones, but there's many other competitors coming into the market. And say you're using Squarespace to build your website, Squarespace now have their own built-in email list manager. Flowjet is another one, so there's plenty out there for you to have a look at. Basically what they do, again, they're usually a pay per month subscription service or pay annually subscription service, and they can integrate all of your mail marketing tools and your sales funnel from the beginning contact with customers all the way through to fulfillment and post-purchase love. So think about automation as much as possible. What you want is to take the friction out for your customers and also to take the friction out for you. Did I mention that little checkup tool that we know and love? We built that specially for you because we wanted to make it easy for you to get a really great idea of where your website was at. It's really important, and I mentioned earlier about accessibility. Google now ranks websites based on their accessibility. If you want to know any more about Accessibility 2.0, we've got some fantastic fact sheets and blogs on it in the Digital Ready website. But basically what it's saying is that the web should be made available to all people with all abilities, and no one should be held out of a transaction because your website isn't able to be navigated with hearing or vision or any different ability that might stop them getting there. So Accessibility 2.0 is there to make it easier for everyone to transact with you. That's something that the digital checkup tool will have a look at and see what your accessibility is like. It'll also look at things like the loading times for your images, which can drive people nuts, and they'll jump off your site before they even get on it, particularly if they're on a mobile device and you have got a slow loading image. Nobody wants that. We also want to see if there's really good connectivity to your social media and a host of other things we've built in there for you. So you'll get a diagnostic of how your website's performing, simple traffic light, and then you'll get some deeper dives into some of the things that you can do. And as I mentioned earlier, the coaches are there to help you interpret that and to implement some of the recommendations from the checkup tool. But it's free, and we made it just for your business to be able to do e-commerce better. All right, what can you do now? You've got the strategy, you've had the experience of the user journey, and I've shown you some of the tools that are around. And of course, there are plenty more. Everything is always changing in the e-commerce environment. That's one thing that you can be sure of. What you can do right now is you can revisit your strategy. Really be clear on your marketing, be clear on your capacity, think about your agility, what you can do now, what you can do better, talk to your customers, really go back to those original documents that hopefully you had when you started your business and you set up your brand, and make sure that you are staying true to them and that they've evolved as your business has. There's nothing as important as those. Nothing except your customers, which of course are a key part of those strategy documents. Have a conversation with your customers. It's really important, and they will give you the most direct insight, and they'll tell you things you never even thought about with your business. So I'm a very big fan of having that customer chat. Of course, the Digital Ready Checkup tool, who wouldn't want to use that? That's a nice, easy win that you can do right now. Is everything integrated? Integration and making that whole transaction from end to end for the customer journey, it's really important. So think about each of those separate components. Map them out if you want on a butcher's paper or a whiteboard or some post-it notes. Take some time out of your business to look at the elements of how you do your digital transactions. the more you understand why you've done what you've done. And let's face it, a lot of us, we're doing things on the run, we're setting up our carts because there's a demand. We don't really step back and think about the whole process. I really recommend thinking about it end to end and understanding the customer journey along that. Have you optimized where you can? Have you automated where you can? Have you got digital tools to support the things you're doing in real life so you can be out there doing the most important and high value part of your business, which is whatever that is for you. But being able to get supported by a lot of these digital tools and a really great website with beautiful, easy, seamless transactions, that's the perfect way to make sure that your customers are having a great experience of your brand and that you're utilizing all of the elements of the digital economy to make your e-commerce journey and that of your customers perfect. One final thing to add might seem obvious, but make sure that your brand experience is experienced across the full gamut of your channels. And when you get to the in real life part, if that's part of your mix. When you set up your brand, it's an experience and it's an emotion, and it's one that I need to feel in every part of the transaction. If you've got a really beautiful brand that makes me feel really welcome and warm and loved, if I have a really unpleasant transaction with you, or if I walk into your store and I don't feel I'm being treated like I am on social media, that sends me a really big message about the values of your brand and where I fit in it. So make sure that everything is unilateral across all of your different elements. So I feel like I'm held and seen and embraced by your brand. And that's going to be the final piece in the puzzle of your e-commerce jigsaw. Thank you so much for your time today. I hope you've had a great experience with our e-commerce video and that you've got some things to think about and some actions to do to be able to take your business to the next level. This is Dr. Digital for the Digital Ready program. If you want any more information about all the different services we've got, you can catch up on anything you've missed on the Digital Ready website, www.digitalready.tas.gov.au.